few minutes in, I switched to what appears to be a slightly better table where I'm dealt king-jack offsuit in middle position. I raised to 30, the cutoff, button, and big blind all call. We're going 4 ways to the flop. It comes ace, 8, 5, all clubs. We've got the king-high flush draw. The big blind checks. I have a blocker to the nuts, a great draw, and an ace-high board is also good for me as the pre-flop aggressor. I bet 70 as a semi-bluff. There's a small chance that I can win this immediately with a bet. If not, the pot will be larger for me in case I hit my draw, and I can actually keep firing as a bluff on future streets if I want. The cutoff calls, the button folds, the big blind calls, it's down to 3 of us, the turn is the 3 of clubs, we've got the nuts and a multi-way pot. The big blind checks. I'm hoping at least one of my opponents has the queen, jack, or 10 of clubs and will be willing to stick around. I bet 140 to target those hands. The cutoff does his best impression of a batter facing Randy Johnson in the 90s, and he gets out. The big blind is a different story. His is one of future pain and tragedy. He calls, likely drawing dead unless he has a set or 2 pair. It's heads up. The river is the 6 of hearts. It's a blank, allowing us to maintain the best possible hand. The big blind checks. He likely won't call a 3rd barrel without having a Broadway club. I could bet a large amount to target the queen. Instead, I bet 360 to give myself a better chance getting called by a slightly wider range of hands. The big blind knows what I'm representing, isn't happy about it, but still calls immediately while eloquently expressing himself.
Fuck, I got the queen. God damn it. Nice hand.
The opponent isn't feeling great because he loses a sizable pot. I'm glad to be on my side of the cooler. I just can't help but feel like I missed out on some value. I certainly would have made it more if I knew for sure what we were up against. We'll make faster progress with rockets though. It's a straddle pot and we're in the big blind. Under the gun +1, the player in middle position and the cutoff all limp in for 20. The aggressive European player on my right raises to 160. This is teed up perfectly for me. I put in the 3-bet to 400. 2 of the limpers fold. The cutoff, who's the same opponent who folded the ace in the previous hand, is having a harder time returning his cards to the dealer. He's only put $20 in so far, and it's $380 more for him to stick around. I can't imagine what he could be holding for him to even consider calling or raising, but then my mind goes back to a conversation I happened to hear him have with the player sitting next to him about a prior hand. In it, he said that he limped in pre-flop with kings since the European player has been aggressively raising and 3-betting against him. Perhaps the cutoff is limped in with the monster again here. He gets a count on my stack. I only have 1,700 total, and the cutoff has me covered. I'm hoping that we're going to hear the opponent say all in. Instead, we hear him say, he lays down whatever he had, and then the small blind folds right away. I'm absolutely shocked to hear what the cutoff says that he folded.
If you're not in between this, I put them all in. I don't know what you have. You already made a raise. You have kings or aces?
I have kings, yeah, I have kings.
Yeah,
we all know you have this, right?
I don't think he had aces. I would say there's a chance he might have had jacks there, you know?
There's a lot to talk about there. The cutoff limp folded pocket queens to a 3-bet. He said he was more worried about the small blind. I don't know how that's possible given the fact that the small blind regularly raises and 3-bets when the cutoff is in hand. He should be the last person to be worried about. Because the small blind is so aggressive, it opens it up for me to re-raise, which is the situation that the small blind recognizes, but the cutoff doesn't, and that's why the small blind was laughing. It's mind-boggling that the cutoff could have limped in with queens, eliciting a raise, then a 3-bet, and then after setting the trap, he folds. I don't think in my entire time playing poker I've ever seen someone limp fold queens, and on top of that, he was actually correct in doing so. If it was anyone else at the table, I wouldn't have believed him, but this particular opponent I actually believe, given what I heard him say quietly to someone else before, the fact that he laid down top pair and showed me, and the fact that he tanked in this situation. I somehow win the absolute minimum. There's still plenty to be gained from what we heard the cutoff say though. He tends to play very scared poker at times, and hopefully I can take advantage of that down the road. After adding on and winning a small bomb pot, I'm dealt 8 deuce offsuit in the big blind. The cutoff limps in. He's the same dude who folded pocket queens pre-flop. I check, the flop comes queen 8 deuce with 2 diamonds, we've got bottom 2 pair. I check, the cutoff checks back. The turn is the 8 of diamonds, giving us a boat with 2 cards that I would have been happy to have folded pre-flop. I don't want this to check through again, so I bet 30. This is when things get interesting. The cutoff min raises to 60. I'm wondering if I should go for the re-raise now, or if I should let this dude hang himself. He's actually amassed a huge stack somehow, but he's had several drinks, and he's talking some trash.
You could beat the fucking YouTube man. What is it? Clive Owen or something?
Clive Owen, yeah.
It was something else, man.
I flat in order to go for the check raise on the river. The dealer puts out the 7 of spades. I check to the cutoff. I'm sort of concerned that this might get checked back. It doesn't. The guy is like Joe Montana coming through in the clutch with a bet of 100. He's not going to be too thrilled when I make my move. I raise to
400.
The opponent's a bit of a serial tanker. At least he makes it fun by allowing us access to what's going on in his head. For a dude who had all the right reads, he gets a well-earned F for his play. Usually you don't want to raise someone that you believe to be strong, and you definitely don't want to fire again on the river once you get called. It's not his fault though that he's in this situation. It's obviously the dealer's fault. The player earlier got a count on my chips. I have 1180 behind. I'm starting to think that this tank job might be an elaborate act, and then he's going to jam on me with queens full or something. I soon find out that's not the case when the opponent decides to turn over the jack of diamonds as if he's got the flush in order to get a reaction out of me. To be honest, I'm more worried about a real-life Sharknado happening than I am about this guy's fake flush that he's wasting everyone's time with. If he had a flush, why not just flip over both cards? Instead, he keeps going on with the theatrics. Dude, I bluffed you earlier with 9-8 as a tribute to Tony the Goose Siragusa. He doesn't know that though. After a minute and 54 seconds goes by in a pot that isn't that large, the opponent folds what I imagine is Queen Jack offsuit. I never see what the other card is. I'm almost positive it's not a diamond. This particular opponent hasn't called me in one spot today, and I think he's being genuine with his belief that I don't bluff, so I'll for sure try to use that against him if I can find the right opportunity. I get completely card dead for almost 2 hours before getting dealt pocket kings on the button. After looking at rags for an extended period of time, I'm beginning to wonder if this premium hand is just a mirage. 3 players limp in, including the guy who's trying to beat Clive Owen but can't. I only see that there are 2 limpers and I raised to 50. I would have made it 60 if I'd known there was one more. All 3 opponents call. We're going 4 ways to the flop in position. It comes Jack 8-7 rainbow. Not particularly good since one of the other players could have a straight, 2 pair, or perhaps a set. Under the gun and the middle position player check. The hijack isn't going to wait for me to bet. He makes it 130. This is a very strange situation. I'm never folding. I call. It'd be great if the other 2 players fold and we're able to play heads up in position. Instead, both opponents call. 4 of us have put money in on the flop. That's very scary. The turn is the 3 of clubs. It's a complete blank at least. He checks to the hijack once more. This time he unloads a bet of 650. I've been waiting for quite a while to make a hand. I finally have one, and I'm facing a big bet for this game with multiple opponents. It's really tough for this to be a bluff since it has to get through a lot of people. One of the other players may have even flatted the bet on the flop with 10-9 to set a trap. There's a chance that I'm best with pocket kings. It's just not worth it for me to stick around after the hijack, who'd been playing tight up to this point, is blasting away here. I like to avoid situations in which I might be drawing dead. I fold in order to find a better spot. Under the gun folds, the middle position player eventually folds as well. We never see what the hijack has. He wins a nice pot though. I go on a nice streak of getting dealt some playable hands that I'm able to win some small pots with before picking up King 10 of diamonds under the gun. I raise to 30. It's the 4th hand in a row in which I've been the pre-flop aggressor. The European player on my right may suspect that I'm opening light. He 3-bets to 140. I've got a hand that plays okay in position. I call for 110 more, but there's a bit too wide of a call from me. We're heads up. The flop comes 8-8 deuce with 2 diamonds. We've got a flush draw and 2 overs. The big blind bets 100. I've got one of the best flops that I could get. I'm going nowhere. I call. Despite this being heads up between me and the European player, there's a lot of big pot tension that the entire table feels, even the drunk guy.
Might make twitch.
The turn is the 10 of spades, which matches one of our cards. Now we at least beat all ace high combos. We're not out of the woods yet though. The big blind bet's 320. I've got a hand with value and a lot of potential. I don't necessarily feel the need to turn my hand into a semi-bluff in order to get better pocket pairs to fold, although there's some part of me that wants to rep 10s full. I call with hopes of drilling another 10 or a small diamond. If the ace, queen, or jack of diamonds comes out, there's a greater risk that my opponent will have a full house. We don't get any of those cards. The river is the king of clubs, giving us top 2 pair in a large pot. If I'm up against aces, kings, or 10s, I'm going to lose a lot of money. The big blind checks, alleviating most of my concerns. There's only 1 combo of kings and 1 combo of 10s left in the deck anyway, so I don't need to worry too much about those hands. The main hand that I'm worried about is aces. Not that worried though.
All in.
I slightly overbet jam for 1270. I want it to look like I missed a flush draw. I don't get snap called, so I'm almost 100% sure that I've got the best hand. Maybe the opponent can find a call with a hand like pocket queens or jacks with no diamond. He'll almost definitely call with ace king. It's just unlikely that he'll have that given how this has been played. Ultimately, the big blind lays his hand down. We've been friendly with each other throughout the session, talking about poker and YouTube. I let him know that he made the right decision.
Good fold, good.
After a full day of poker, it's time to rack up.